So today we are going to go over a question from the homework from last night, and we're also going to finish up what we didn't get to on Friday, the last word problem on there, which is very similar to that number 37 on your homework. So after we do that one in class today, number 37 should be very easy. And then we will learn how to use the calculator to calculate matrices, to multiply them, and then we will practice. And the rest of the worksheets will be for homework. We should get started on them before we leave. All right, so take out your homework from last night. We're going to go over number 29. And this is what it gave you. It also gave you two more matrices, D and E. Plus 3AB was. And so all they want us to do are just take those matrices that they give us above and plug them into our equation there. So first we have A. So we're just going to take that matrix and put it right next to that scalar 4. And A is being multiplied by C. So we're just going to take that C matrix and multiply it by the A. And then for the second part of this, we have our scalar of 3. And then what two matrices are we going to plug in here? Leah? Good. And so then after this, I left my scalars out front and I multiplied these matrices first in both of them. You can put the scalar into your first one if you want. So then when I multiplied my first two matrices together, we would get I'll just do it without that step. So we have 5 times negative 6, which is negative 30, plus negative 3 times 4 gives us minus 12. And you can set this up the way we did it in class on Friday to make it a little bit easier. But when you did multiply those matrices, I'll give you that answer. You should have gotten negative 42, 12, 28, negative 2, once you do that multiplication, and negative 12, 11, 16, and negative 10. That's after you're multiplying those two matrices together. And then what should we do here? Before we add them, what should we do? Grace? Yeah, we're going to multiply that 4 into this first matrix and this 3 into the second matrix. And then you add them after that. So this problem was a little bit more in depth, but still the same steps. It's easy to make mathematical errors. Questions on the setup of this? All right, cool. Let's head over to your notes from Friday. We're going to finish that problem we didn't get to. And then we're also going to use our calculator. So take out your graphing calculator as well. We didn't get to finish this problem. So we did the math for 2 of our numbers here, but let's fill in what we have to do for the rest. What numbers we're going to multiply together. So for the first row, second column, this number right here, what numbers are we going to multiply and add together? Helene? So we'll do a little bit of a refresher. So this first, whatever rows just line up with what the spot you want, those are what rows and columns you're going to multiply together. So for this spot right here, lines up with our first row in our first matrix. And what columns does it line up with in our second matrix, the first or second? Riley? Yeah, the second. So we're taking this row and this column and multiplying them together. So Riley, could you tell me what numbers we're going to multiply together?
Would you multiply 6 by 2 and then 2 by -2?
Exactly. And if we are always going to put our number that's in our column in parentheses, that's an easy way to check that you have it set up. And I'll show you once we finish these last three. So what about this one? What row and what column are we going to use? Jordan.
Multiply -1 times -1.
Yeah.
And then add 3.
Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. My bad.
And 5.
Yeah. And now for bottom row. Faith, could you tell me what's going to go in this spot right here?
Yeah. 0 and then +4 -4 times 5.
Good. So you want to make sure you didn't need to show that. So Faith already knew that 0 times -1 will give us 0. So that's what she put there. And then we have -4 times 5. And what about our last step right here? That last spot. Madison, do you have this spot right here? Yeah, awesome. So if you have all of the numbers in your columns in parentheses, you would see that the numbers in your parentheses are going to line up. We have -1, -1, -1, and we also have 5, 5, 5. We have all 2s and all -2s. And that's the way to check your work, to make sure you're multiplying the right numbers together. If you just consistently write the number in your row times the number in your column, they should line up. And then when you multiply and add them all together, that's how we got our final matrix right there. Questions on that one? Cool. All right, so now let's look at this word problem. So it says, the school store from the middle school and the high school each submit an inventory list for the year. Each sweatshirt costs $15, each t-shirt costs $9, and each pennant costs $5. Use matrix multiplication, I'll find the total cost of the inventory for each school store. And they give us the number of sweatshirts, shirts, and pennants for our middle and high school. Now this is set up for us. Now, how do we know how to set this up? We need to make sure that what we are writing in each of our columns here lines up with how it would look in the second matrix, that your row and your column line up. Because we know we take a whole row and multiply that by a column. So whatever is our first number in our row, which here we're representing that to be sweatshirts, must line up with what we would multiply that in our column. So we have a sweatshirt times sweatshirt, and then t-shirt times t-shirt, pennant times pennant. That's how we know how to set that up. So how many sweatshirts do we have in the middle school under inventory? What did it give us out of our information right here? Malachi, 61. What about t-shirts? And pennants? Good. We're just taking what they gave us in our inventory. And we can see the high schools right below that. And that's what we're going to write in the following row. So that came from the middle school. And then the high school has 58 sweatshirts, 71 t-shirts, and 92 pennants. And we are multiplying that by a cost matrix. How much did sweatshirts cost? Well, it gave us that right up here. Sweatshirts are 15. They gave us all of the costs up there. So then we would write 15 for sweatshirts. What about for t-shirts? Leah? And what about pennants? Exactly. So that's how we're setting that up. And to get our total cost, we would multiply these matrices together. Our inventory matrix is a what? What are the dimensions of our inventory matrix? Jordan? Row by column. Yeah. And what about our cost? 3 by 1. So then when we multiply these together, does the number of our columns match the number of our rows? Yep. So then what would our matrix be when we multiply them together? What would the dimensions be?
3 by 3.
Exactly. Yeah, when those numbers are equal to another, that just means that we can multiply it. In my mind, I cross them out. We're going to take our row by our column, 2 by 1. So I'm going to go and set it up like we did on Friday so that they line up. And Jordan told us that this is going to be a 2 by 1. So I'm going to leave 2 blanks there because that's a 2 by 1 matrix. Questions on the setup? All right. So now we're just going to go ahead and multiply. So what row and what column are going to go in this first line? Grace, could you tell me what we're going to multiply for this element? Is that it? Yeah. Keep going. Good. We're taking that whole row and multiplying it by the whole column. And then what about our bottom line? Riley? Yep. Awesome. And now how can we check our work here to make sure that we lined up, multiplied the right numbers by each other? What can we see that where we know that we multiplied the right numbers together? Malachi? Yeah, the numbers in our parentheses are the same. We know that we're multiplying the whole row by the column in both of them. So we're good. So go ahead, add them up, and get what that would equal. Leah, can you tell me what you got in your final matrix? Perfect. And if you make a mistake here, it's very easy to make computational mistakes. You have your number set up, and there's your final answer. So now we're going to check this in our calculator. So I'm going to pull up mine. So you will notice above your inverse button, your x to the -1, you will see that matrix. It's a little dark on here, but you will see that you have matrix above that inverse button, x to the -1. So to get to that, you hit second inverse, and it brings you to this matrix part of your calculator. Now, the first, when it says names, that's just saying what the name of that matrix is. You can't go in and make your matrix there. If you go to edit, you have to scroll over to the top right, that edit button, in order to go in and put what you want for matrix A. So then you can click enter, and mine's going to look a little bit different than yours, but it brings you to where you put in your dimensions in the top. Let's look down. Our first matrix we had there, Jordan gave that to us to be a 2 by 3. So we are going to write 2, enter, 3, enter. And then your 2 by 3 matrix pops up, the same amount of rows to the columns that you need. So now all you're going to do is write in that matrix. So we said that our first matrix, we'll have that be A. It was 61. And once you hit that number, you click enter, and that will bring you over to the next number. So go ahead and fill that matrix in with the numbers it gave you. And once you're done, don't click clear. Wait there. I'll explain what to do next. So if you click clear, that will clear what you just wrote in for that last element. So to get out of this, you want to click second quit to get back to your home screen. So now we have that number, that matrix that you just put in is calculated for matrix A. Now let's call our second matrix here, matrix B. So you go back in a second inverse to this matrix. We see that we now have a 2 by 3. That may not show up on your calculator, but in A, that's where you just found that matrix. You want to go over to edit. Again, you always have to make sure you go over to edit in order to put what you want in that matrix. So now let's go down to B. You have to pick a different name for the matrix for a different set of numbers you want to put in. So let's go to B. You can just scroll down to it. And our dimensions of our second matrix were 3, 1. So I'm going to click 3, enter, 1, enter. Boom, there's my 3x1 matrix. Maybe. There we go. And then we plug in our numbers that we had for our second matrix, which were 15, 9, and 5. And you're clicking enter after every number you put in. And again, I'm gonna hit second quit because that's what I want calculated in for matrix B. Questions so far, plugging in those matrices. Cool, so I'm gonna click second quit. Now remember, is matrix multiplication commutative? Did you say it was commutative? Right, no. A times B does not equal B times A. So which way did we named our A matrix, our 2x3, and our B, our 3x1? So how would we want to put this into our calculator if we multiplied those two matrices? Good, Faith? A times B. That's the way we put them in our calculator. So let's click second matrix. And now we're going to stay here. We have our two matrices entered there. It's okay if it doesn't say 2 times 3 on your calculator. My calculator doesn't. We're going to click enter. This is how you get what matrix you want to have some type of computation being done to it. We're going to click enter. Now we have A in for what we want to multiply by. Now from this screen, we're going to click second inverse again. We're going to go back to those matrices. And now we're going to scroll down to B and click enter. Now you see that you have A times B in your calculator. And now we're going to click enter. And we just got what we just calculated for that matrix. Questions on how we did this in our calculator? Cool. So it's very important when you click second inverse, in order to put what you want, you may have to make sure you go over to edit when you are putting a matrix in. And then once you have your matrices calculated for C and D or whatever letter you want to pick, that's when you would use the names to enter them. Questions on that? Let's do another one. Let's go and do the top of that page, A and B. So now you can just go right back into matrix A. If you want to use A again, you can just click right on that again. Oh, see, I made the mistake. I just clicked A. You want to go over to edit when you want to edit your matrix. I can click A again if I want. And so it first will bring you to the number of rows. So now I'm just going to write right over that. For A, we had that to be a 3x2. 3, enter 2. And it will change your matrix. You can just click right over that and enter what you have for A. Once I'm done plugging in what I have for A, I'm going to click second quit. I'll go back into second inverse, go over to edit, and now choose a new letter for matrix B. It will automatically bring you to the top. Type in your dimensions and type in your matrix. So I have both my matrices plugged in. Great. Could you tell me how to get these matrices multiplied in my calculator? What should I click? Good. And then you get that matrix that we solved for first thing today. Questions on using the calculator to multiply? Mrs. Kane, are they going to have their graphing calculator during a test?
They can use it to check their work, but a problem is only answers will only give them no credit.
Yeah. So a great way to check your work once you go in and you do the work by hand.
The calculator cannot replace the mathematical work.
Yeah.
There to give you assistance to check your work, but never to replace it.
Exactly. All right. So now let's head over to Google Classroom, and we are going to look at what your homework is for tonight. And we're going to start it. So it's two different practice worksheets, 3.5 practice worksheet and 3.6.
They're both in the same attachment.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll after the first one, there's usually like 4 slides in there. So you should see practice 3.5 and then the solutions, practice 3.6 and then the solutions.
And you're not doing all of these numbers.
I believe on the first page you're doing 2 through 10.
Yeah, I have it up here.
On the first
Yep.
screen there.
Yeah. So you may want to write this down on the worksheet once you get it, or just circle the numbers that you have to do. 2 through 10 even, and 11 on the first worksheet, and then 2 through 12 even, and 15.
Make sure you notice that test on chapter 3 is on Thursday. We have one more section to cover tomorrow. We have about 13 minutes for you to get started on this homework.
So I will give you a little bit to go and work on your own, and then I'm going to pull us back together in a few minutes to go look at a few individually. So you can start wherever you want, ask us questions, that's what we're here for. Time for you to practice matrices, addition, subtraction, multiplication. Maybe start on what's more difficult, what you think is more difficult.